तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So Hare Krishna. Today we are going to discuss about the 9 processes of devotional service. Now here as a reference I am reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 7 Chapter 5 verses 23 to 24. Shri Prahlada Uvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnoh Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam Iti Pumsarpita Vishno Bhaktischennava Lakshana Kriyeta Bhagavatyatha Tadmanye Dhitamuttamam. So here Hiranyakashipu, the background of this verse is basically that Hiranyakashipu is now asking his son Prahlada that what he has learnt from the teachers of his school, that is Shanda and Amarka. So here actually Hiranyakashipu has already asked Prahlada before. So Prahlad at that time he replied by saying that Hiranyakashipu should just go and Hiranyakashipu should just go to the forest, he should sever all the attachments and everything. So he says Tat sadhu manye asuravarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhiyam asadgrahat hitvatma pakam grihamanda kopam vanam gato yadharim ashrayata. He says that, O best of the asuras, kings of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest, Vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavana where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prahlad Maharaj is advising Hiranyakashipu when Hiranyakashipu asked him what he learned from his teachers at school. So when Hiranyakashipu heard this, he laughed. So after some time he got very much agitated when Prahlad Maharaj was instructing him in the path of devotional service to Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu was his enemy. So he became very much agitated and he ordered the teachers of the demons, Shukracharya, his sons Shanda and Amarka, they were teaching Prahlada. So he ordered them to once again teach them properly and he chastised them and everything. So then he advised his assistants to give complete protection to this boy at the Gurukula, and he very nicely he treated them and gave them the way what to do. And then once they brought him back to his father after teaching him, after chastising Prahlad Maharaj a little bit, then Hiranyakashipu asked him, now what have you learned from your teachers? So in the previous time Prahlad Maharaj replied with one verse, that is Tat sadhu manye asuravarya dehinam, he advising Hiranyakashipu to go to the forest or Vrindavana. And now he is replying with 2 verses. So these are the 2 verses which he replied. And here the translation is as follows. Prahlada Maharaja said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering him, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend and surrendering everything to him. In other words, serving with the body, mind and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. So here the purport is like very long, so it would be advisable if we could read this at home separately, so that we can get to know in great detail what are the 9 processes of devotional service. So Prabhupada, he basically starts the purport with the introduction to the 9 processes of devotional service, and he mentions that these are very important so that one can execute devotional service. So not all of them are required. If a devotee performs only one of these without deviation, he mentions, so then he can attain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when a devotee executes any one of the 9 processes, Navalakshana, this is sufficient, and the other 8 processes are included. Let us discuss these 9 different processes. So now in great detail, Prabhupada is describing each of the 9 processes. So they are number 1 Shravanam, number 2 Kirtanam, number 3 Vishnu Smaranam, number 4 Padasevanam, number 5 Archanam, number 6 Vandanam, number 7 Dasyam, number 8 Sakyam, and number 9 Atmanivedanam. So Shravanam, this is the beginning of devotional service. As Prabhupada is mentioning, hearing about the Lord's name, form, pastimes, qualities, etc. These are very much enunciated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and chanting and hearing this is enunciated in the Shikshashtakam, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Cheto Darpana Marjanam, where we are cleaning the mind, the mirror of the mind from all the dust which is accumulated from millions and millions of lifetimes contamination. So this can happen when we first hear. So when we hear, then we can actually see the person, the Supreme Lord. So for example, now if I am seeing somebody, I can just think that, oh, they are just like me. But it may be that they are much more advanced than me in many cases. So I may not know about it. I will know about it only when I hear about them. So when I hear about them, okay, this person has this quality, and these are his bad qualities, these are his good qualities. Okay, I will be like, okay, so then I can actually see him. So we can appreciate how great the Lord is. We can understand that we are insignificant and the Lord is Vibhu Atma while we are Anu Atma. So this can happen by hearing, and hearing from the text of Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the most important process of hearing. So Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the chanting of the holy name, and therefore the chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam are transcendentally full of mellows. So this is what Prabhupada, he fully elaborates about this process of Shravanam and Kirtanam. These two are like the basics of the process of devotional service. So we should never think that our Shravanam or our hearing is complete, because the Vedic scriptures, they are like an ocean. So we should never think that our hearing is complete. No matter how much ever we hear, there will always be some more points left. So we should just keep on continue hearing at whatever time. So when this chanting of the holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia is heard from the mouth of a pure devotee, this hearing and chanting is very pleasing. That is what Prabhupada is saying. So Srila Sanatana Goswami has forbidden us from hearing the chanting of an artificial devotee or a non-devotee. This is again another point where it is stated that the artificial devotee or a non-devotee, he actually does not have the property of the parampara. Now, what is the property of the parampara? The parampara is the disciplic succession which is giving the message as it is through a successive chain. And this chain, the property of this chain is that it has the pure love of Krishna. It can impart pure love of Krishna. When we hear from a person who is outside, who may not be hearing from an authorized source, who may just be speculating and then telling us, then we are misled into the wrong path. So it is like अवैष्णव मुखोद्गीर्णं पूतं हरिकथामृतं श्रवणं नैव कर्तव्यं सर्पोच्छिष्टं यथापयः. So it is like pure milk touched by the lips of a serpent, which becomes immediately contaminated. So milk is by nature very nourishing, but when it is touched by the lips of a serpent, that is the outsider or the non-devotee who is trying to give this message, then it becomes immediately poisoned. So we are not supposed to partake of that milk. So we are not supposed to hear from a non-devotee. And Prabhupada is very much fully elaborating. He gives the reference Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.11. He also mentions Sridhara Swami has remarked that a pure devotee takes advantage of another pure devotee by trying to hear from him about the holy name, form and qualities of the Lord. If there is no such opportunity, he alone chants and hears the Lord's holy name. So now who is the most classical example of Shravanam? That is Parikshit Maharaj, who when he understood that his life is his life is about to end, then in the last stages of his life, he heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukdev Goswami and he expressed his eagerness to do the same. So now we are moving into the second type, which is Kirtanam. So second process. And now before we have heard the hearing of the holy name, form, qualities, pastimes, etc. Now what about chanting it? So here Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Shikshashtakam, the third verse has been given as a reference that a devotee can very peacefully chant the holy name of the Lord by three things when he performs. Trinadapi Sunichena, number one, being more humble than a grass. So being more humble than the straw on the street. And number two, being tolerant like a tree. So whether it is summer, winter or rain, the tree stands there and helps others. If somebody comes for shade, it gives the shade. If somebody comes to cut the woods also, it doesn't complain. It is tolerant. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the tree as the Shiksha Guru for tolerance. And the third one is Amanina Manadena, that not expecting anything from anyone at any time. So he doesn't want any honor. So with this, a person becomes purified to chant the holy name properly. And here also it is being mentioned that Hare Nama eva kevalam kalau nasteva gatiranyatha, wherein there is no other way in this age of Kali except by chanting the holy name. So he says Hare Nama eva kevalam. So he mentions it 3 times. This is the only way. So when somebody says something one time, we may not consider it, okay, it may not be right. But when he says it twice, we may consider it, okay, we may need to do this. And number 3, when he says it thrice, that means that it is very important. He has to do it. Somebody has to do it. So here it is not somebody who is saying it. The Lord himself is saying it. So that means that there is actually no other way. So here Yagne Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti hi Sumedasaha. Those who are very sharp in their intelligence should adopt this process of chanting and hearing the holy names of the Lord. So Kaler Dosha Nidhe Rajan Astihi Eko Mahan Gunaha Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangam Paramvaraje. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 12th canto 3rd chapter 51st verse or somewhere around that. So here it is Shukdev Goswami is saying Kaler Dosham Ide Rajan. This Kali is like an ocean of fault, but Astihi Eko Mahan Gunaha, there is one good quality. What is it? Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangam Paramvaraje. So one can become liberated simply by chanting. In the other ages also chanting used to liberate, but at that time what used to happen is that the people there had very good physical strength, mental strength, memory, etc. So they would say that okay, I can memorize an elaborate text of book of Sanskrit verses in just one reading. So why do I need to chant the holy name? So but this Kali Yuga person is very much desperate, so that's why he takes shelter of the chanting of the holy name. So Prabhupada also mentions the 10 offenses to the holy name, which can be found in the ISKCON Desire Tree web page. So we can just go and search in Google the 10 offenses to the holy name, and over there we will find it. So he is mentioning these offenses, and he is saying that if a person is a severe offender in many ways, he can be freed from offensive life if he takes shelter of the Lord's holy name. But if somebody commits an offense towards the holy name, then he cannot be saved. So he has to be very much careful in this. And now Prabhupada is explaining in great detail about Kirtanam in this same purport. And now we are moving to the third part, which is Smaranam. Before that, the classical example of Kirtanam is Shukdev Goswami, who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. So now coming to the third part, which is Smaranam. After one is regularly hearing about and chanting the holy name, what comes by is Smaranam. So I am chanting continuously, chanting, I am hearing continuously, hearing. When I am doing this for a long time, then once the time will come where somebody remembers the Lord, even at a time when he is not performing the the process of devotional service. So after the core of one's heart is cleansed, Smaranam is recommended. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.11 also it is stated by Shukdev Goswami that Etan Nirvidya Mananam Ichhata Makuto Bhayam Yoginam Nripa Nirnitam Harer Namanu Kirtanam. So for the great yogis who have completely renounced all material connections, for those who desire all material enjoyment, and for those who are self-satisfied by the dint of transcendental knowledge, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord is recommended. So there are varieties of Namanu Kirtanam, the chanting of the holy name, and thus according to different relationship and mellows, there are 5 kinds of remembering, as Prabhupada is mentioning here. He is saying that conducting research into the worship of a particular form of the Lord. B, concentrating the mind on one subject and withdrawing the mind's activities of thinking, feeling and willing from all other subjects. C, concentrating upon a particular form of the Lord. This is called meditation. D, concentrating one's mind continuously on the form of the Lord. This is called Dhruvanusmriti or perfect meditation. And E, awakening a likening for concentration upon a particular form. This is called Samadhi or trance. So when we are continuously engaged in the process of Kirtanam, then Smaranam, Kirtanam and Shravanam, then Smaranam, that is remembrance, comes automatically. And this one we find, as an example, we find Prahlad Maharaj himself, who is the character in the background here. So he is the one always remembering the Lord. Fourth process is Pada Sevanam. And according to one's taste and strength, hearing, chanting and remembrance may be followed by Pada Sevanam. So one obtains the perfection of remembering when he constantly thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. When he is being intensely attached to thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, then he can be considered to be adherent to the process of Pada Sevanam. So when one is adherent to this process, then it includes all such as seeing the Lord, touching the form of the Lord, circumambulating the temple, visiting the dhams, etc. So, seeing a pure Vaishnava is also called as Tadiya Upasanam. This is also called Padasevanam. So, the classical example for Padasevanam is goddess Lakshmi ji, or Lakshmi, Mother Lakshmi. So, now we are moving to the fifth process, which is Archanam. Here, worship of the deity. This is like a very, very important part of the worship of the Lord. And Prabhupada has written just a purport of like 4.5 pages, around like 5 pages he has written just on Archanam. That is the importance of Archanam. Archanam is where one is worshipping the deity. So this is in this process of deity worship, one engages the body directly in the service of the Lord. So here he is also mentioning that he is giving the rules and regulations for deity worship. He is mentioning what should one do, what should not do, what are the potential offenses that one can commit, and what are from different Puranas like Varaha Purana and the other offenses, and in other places, etc. So he also says that if one commits any of the above offenses, he must read at least one chapter of the Gita, and this is confirmed in the Skanda Purana. And he is giving all the rules and regulations. So in the process of worshipping the deity, it can happen that one may not get the time and the facility to do the same. So one can even also worship the Lord in the mind. So one can visualize offering all this to the Lord, because the Lord can appear in any form and anywhere. So it is the love and devotion that matters when we offer worship to the Lord. So Prabhupada also describes the story of a poor Brahmana who attained the salvation of Samipya, the facility of living near the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are next moving to the sixth process, which is forgot about that. The example for Archanam is Prithu Maharaj, who is the Shakti Avesh avatar or empowered incarnation of Krishna. So next we are moving towards the process of Vandanam. And although prayers are a part of deity worship, they may be considered separately like other items. And therefore separate statements are given. And the Lord has transcendental qualities and opulences, and one who feels influenced by the Lord's qualities in various ways offers prayers to the Lord. In this way one becomes successful. In this connection, there are some of the following obeisances one should avoid. To offer obeisances with one hand, to offer obeisances with one's body covered, to show one's back to the deity, to offer obeisances on the left side of the deity, to offer obeisances very near to the deity. And also here, for the example of Vandanam is Akrura. He is offering prayers to the Supreme Lord. So Akrura is the person who came to take Krishna away from Vrindavan when he had to go for Kamsa's Dhanur Yajna. So next comes as Dasyam, and Dasyam is basically the mellow of servitorship. If one continues to think that he is eternal servant of the Lord, that is called true ego. So then one can immediately attain the Lord without performing any other process of devotional service. So for simply by this feeling, one can perform all 9 processes of devotional service. So the example of Dasyam is Hanumanji. Yes, it is Hanumanji. So Sakyam. Now next thing is Sakyam. So Sakyam is again another mood of serving the Lord, where one thinks that he is the friend of the Lord. So Sakyam is mainly part of Sakya Rasa, where one derives the rasa or the mellow of serving the Lord by becoming a friend. So here the gopis, no, not gopis, the gopas of Vrindavan and Arjuna, Pandavas, etc., they are like the friends of the Supreme Lord. He is treating them, Sudama, Vipra, Sudama, and so these are the examples of Sakyam, the process of devotional service, where we think that the Lord is our friend and I am Lord's friend, and that is how we are having a very close relationship. So the last and final process is the ninth one, which is Atma Nivedanam, which states that this is the stage where one has no other motive other than to surrender and serve the Lord, where he performs his activities only to please the Lord. Such a devotee is like a cow that is cared for by its master, and when it's cared for by its master, the cow has no anxiety about its maintenance. So example of Atma Dev, Atma Nivedanam, is Bali Maharaj and Ambarish Maharaj. So Atma Nivedanam is also sometimes found in the behavior of Rukmini Devi at Dwaraka, where Atma Nivedanam means complete surrender. So we have now finished discussing in small detail, in to a little extent, about the 9 processes of devotional service. It is advisable in this connection that one read the 7th canto, 5th chapter, 23rd and 24th verse. They are combined together. So this describes the entire processes of devotional service with all the details and references by Srila Prabhupada and everything else. So the Supreme Lord is all merciful. One can attain him by performing any of the 9 processes of devotional service. It is not necessary to perform all of them also. So if one performs any one of those activities with Adav Shraddha, with perfect faith, then he actually becomes eligible for liberation and serving the Lord with him. So these are the 9 processes of devotional service. We can start off with the basics, Shravanam and Kirtanam. We can apply any of these processes and we can achieve the Lord. So we should all endeavor towards this direction. This is the end of the explanation on the 9 processes of devotional service. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.